Hey everyone, Pastor George here. As you might remember, I was going to talk about what I'm talking about today last week, but then the Capitol riot thing happened. But now I can talk about it because there's nothing too essential that's going on out there in the culture right now. So I can talk about this show that I am watching currently. So the show I'm watching currently is an anime. So for those of you who don't know that, that's Japanese animation, right? Wasn't really popular in the United States until like the late 90s, early 2000s. And now it's like really popular. Maybe some of your kids watched it, grandkids, whatever. It's kind of hard to ignore now, but it's all over the place. Anyway, this series that I'm watching is actually a little older. I think it came out in like 2006 or something like that. It's a series called Welcome to the NHK. The NHK is Japan's national broadcasting company, so like PBS or like BBC or something like that. And the reason it has that name is it's because it's about this NEET is what we call them in the United States. In Japan, they're called hikikomori, which are people that stay inside. And NEET is an acronym in case you don't know it. It means no education, employment, or training. And it means like a young person who's doesn't have a job, doesn't go to school, isn't being trained in any field or anything like that, and they just kind of stay home and play video games and do all these other things. And it was what's really interesting is like Japan is like 10 years ahead of the United States when it comes to stuff like this. I don't know why. It just kind of happens to be the case. You first saw this with like the NEET phenomenon there, and now you see it kind of in like the growing amount of people who aren't having sex in the United States and stuff like that. It's just very interesting. And I have a lot that's kind of it just probably has to do with them being a little bit more technologically ahead than we are and stuff like that. But regardless, I think this show has a lot of interesting things to say to us, just as people in the 21st century, but also as Christians. So, one of the things that this show talks about is how people will use conspiracy theories or other things to explain why they can't get ahead. In this case, the main character explains that the NHK is putting out messages and making him feel alone, so it's their fault that he's by himself, right? But in general, it's just a sense of lack of purposelessness, right? He just doesn't have a purpose in his life. And so the whole moat of the series is a girl who works with a missionary agency, which is something that Christians in Japan do. Ends up coming into his life and tries to help him come out of this. This is actually a ministry that Christian missionaries do in Japan. Now, one of the interesting things in this series is just that the guy is trying to find purpose. Now, of course, it doesn't end in the series, as far as I know, with him, coming to faith or whatever. But the point is that you have to have some purpose in your life, or what's going to stop you from just being a shut-in in your apartment or whatever. And I actually see this trend rising with young people in the United States, specifically my generation and younger than us. There's a growing amount of these people known as NEETs who are not taking part in society, or people of my generation just generally not really having that much of a purpose. And I think that's because a lot of the institutions that have been there and have given people purpose in the past have lost a lot of their importance, or their sheer, their sheen, like their face of being important, and have been kind of exposed as being like hypocritical and not really having that much intelligent or interesting things to say, being dishonest, all these other types of things, right? And so it's caused people to shut in, right? What is the point of life, if any of this stuff, if everyone is kind of lying to you, type of thing? Of course, the church also has played a role in this as well, which is why I think it's so important to give people an authentic look at what Christianity is, and try and live that out in our lives as best as possible, so we don't look like hypocrites. But Christianity is also the only thing that can really truly, a religion in general, but I would say Christianity in its best form can really only give people what they really want, which is meaning in life, right? A lot of people, just to piggyback off of what I talked about last time, we'll substitute it with like politics, which is an easy one, but also these days with like fandoms, which is, you might not know this, but like people become very attached to the shows they watch, to the culture that they're a part of, right? They become really into video games, really into anime, guilty as charged, really into all these other type of things. I guess you can get me on basically any nerdy subculture. But the point is they make it the point of their personality, right? It's everything that sums up who they are is this thing. And I think that's because people don't know where to actually find their true meaning, and so they'll just find it in like things and fads that pass away. And I think this show calls that out, and it moves him from being someone who has made a meaning in things that are ultimately not very fulfilling, to pushing him to a something that is meaningful at the end, right? And that's kind of our job as Christians, is we want to find people who are like this in our lives and help them find the true meaning that is there for them, and that is God's purpose for their life. So this show, you can't find it anywhere unless you subscribe to a really niche service, so I'm not going to tell you to watch it, but just know that like this is a problem in our society, and it's something the church has to deal with, and we're equipped to do it by Jesus. So if you know people like this, either let me know about it, and I can talk to them, or try and talk to them, or talk to them yourselves, right? And invest in them. All right, everyone, I will answer questions tomorrow. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Peace out.